Carla, where have you been all these while, Isabel? Mint asked after a short, passionate kiss that sent my mind into a frenzy. He sounded dreamy, and I could swear it was the same voice Romeo used when talking to Juliet before they fell into their untimely death. Damn Shakespeare, I was never a fan. I've looked everywhere for you, everywhere I can think of. His rich, deep baritone voice deepened my daze. You didn't look hard enough. I was right here beside you. I thought in my head, but I could not reply. My voice was still stuck up in the clouds with my brain. How can someone be this perfect? Physically, though, I know Mint could be an ass sometimes, but his good looks somehow compensated for that. Or maybe not, and right now, I wasn't really listening to what he was saying. All I could see was his firm lips moving smoothly, his straight nose and dark gray eyes that I was literally drowning into. I stood 5-6 feet taller, many inches taller than other rankless she-wolves, but Mint towered many feet over me, his broad shoulders making it too obvious. We were both inside the beach house built by him, the Alpha and the Beta. The room was cozy and fancy, a great go-to place when someone wanted to clear their head. Everything in the room was built with wood. Which of the packs are you from? His voice came again, causing my heart to thump like crazy in my chest. Our pack? Green? Blue? Indigo? Gray? I don't think that is important right now, though. I laughed nervously. I was still unable to believe he was my mate. I mean, how was that possible? It excited the hell out of me, but made me anxious at the same time. I don't want you disappearing on my again. Somehow, I felt you did it on purpose the last time. He muttered, looking suddenly vulnerable like a little kid. I've never looked for any female the way I looked for you, Izzy, and back then, I didn't even know you were my mate. He was right about that one, anyway. Females flocked themselves around him like flies to corpse. But he had no idea I was closest to him. I stalked him for years, crushed on him like an idiot. I knew the car he drives, and when he changes them, I knew the color he loved to wear most. I even knew his previous girlfriends and some of his stringless flings. But he doesn't even know my real name, and I'll love to keep it that way for as long as possible. Izzy, are you not happy we are mates? He asked, a deep frown creasing his flawless forehead. I mean, I'm literally over the moon that I finally found you after all my fruitless search, and you turned out to be my mate when I was giving up on ever finding my mate. But you haven't said much since we left the hospital. My eyes shot up at him. How could he say that? I'm just too shocked as well. I didn't know things would turn out this way. He held me flush against his hard body possessive, burying his nose into my hair in a manner that sent an electrifying sensation zapping through my abdomen. I have no idea how you found me all the way to the hospital, but I'm really glad you came. Izzy and I would never let you out of my sight again. He spoke with a soothing voice, patting my fake hair with his hands. Oh my good! That doesn't sound too good, does it? Was he always this nice? I wondered. Feeling overwhelmed with him being this close and all the words he was saying. I wanted to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming because this was seriously all I have been imagining since I knew him. He stepped back, holding me at arm's length. Is today like some special day? You look more stunning than the last time, he observed, watching me intently. Today's my birthday, I muttered, finding it real hard to look up at him. I turned 19. I lied. Well, he looked like he was quite older, and I don't know how kissing a 17-year-old girl would make him feel. And I don't really have a family to celebrate with, so here I am, I finished in my head. Oh my God, for real? He dipped his head as if to look at me properly. And we aren't celebrating yet? He laughed and led me to a beautifully carved wooden chair covered with soft foam. He ambled to a wall switch and turned on all the other light that gave the beach house a stunning view. I didn't know the house had this much light owing to the dimness of the place when we first came in. Mint went to get a bottle of wine and dropped it on the table in front of me with 2 glasses. Red wine are for birthdays, he smiled, revealing an intricately designed set of teeth. Another heart racing. He moved with so much self-confidence and poise, like someone so comfortable in his own skin and at ease with himself. I could easily see why females threw themselves at him without thinking twice. Mint was so sure of himself, and you didn't need words to know. His gestures, ambience, the way he carried himself subconsciously, and even in his easy smile, he doesn't try too hard. He just simply existed while oozing mind-numbing sophistication. Do I really deserve him? Happy birthday, Isabel. He handed me a glass of red wine before sitting close to me, regarding me closely while he took a sip from his glass. You didn't seem this tight-lipped and stiff at the ball. Your naive carefreeness was what drew me to you. He raised his glass, clicked it on mine, taking another sip. Naive carefreeness? What was that anyway? How could I be as carefree as last time when I was having this much on my mind? My head was literally in a roller coaster, and I can't even organize my thoughts right now. I was too aware of the heat from his closeness, too conscious of his delicious smell that was giving me mental freeze. I couldn't really breathe. I don't know where I would start from when I start narrating things to Emma. But for now, I have to say something so as not to bore him. God. I emptied the whole content of the wine into my mouth, feeling my body trembling with edginess. I wanted it. I wanted him. I might not be able to have him later, but now that I could. Mint chuckled quietly as he dropped his glass back on the table, then taking mine and dropping it as well. My wish was to kiss you the next time I meet you, Isabel, but maybe there could be more, darling mate, he uttered huskily, tilting my chin up with his middle finger before claiming my lips into his. My whole body shuddered, melting into his charm, his mesmerizing aura. I wanted to be wholly his without holding back. He could go ahead and look down on me later, but for now I'm his mate, I thought as his hands came in contact with my bare skin, drawing a soft moan from my dry throat. Mint. At the party, Isabel was a pure wild cat, but here she looked calm and collected like she had so much on her mind. She was still fearless and carefree, the kind of characteristics I avoid in people, but hers had a genuine difference attached that one couldn't miss. She was naive, yet brave enough to say what was on her mind, even though it would have made her look slutty, as other females would think. I had literally mobbed out all the bold purple lipstick she smeared on her lips, leaving a quivering red lips in its wake. Still, I wanted more. Hades, my wolf, was groveling for more. He wanted us to claim her and make her ours right here and now. He wanted her just like she wanted us. But I had to restrain myself. I wanted to show her to my family, my grandfather and mother. I wanted to show her to my two brothers Zeus and Axel. Then I would go see her family and introduce myself to them and them to my family. I would be doing it the old and traditional way before commemorating our bond. She wasn't like my current girlfriend or exes or brief flings. She was mine already, and there was absolutely no need to rush things. I said to her as politely as possible so she wouldn't feel rejected or awkward. For now, I want to know more about you, like the pack you come from, your family, your career, hobbies, and the likes. She was about to reply when a mind link from Kurt interrupted. It was about the alpha's mate, and she was missing. Come quickly, Mint. He might lose his mind anytime soon, Curtis said with urgency before cutting the link. I told her something came up with an apologetic tone, and she seemed to understand, but first I made her promise me to meet me here by 9 p.m. the next day. She turned down my offer to drive her home, saying she knew her way around. I felt a bit of reassurance before heading towards the castle. Hopefully the issue at hand wasn't that bad. Emma. I had waited for Zyke until midnight, hoping he would come back to me and tell me the way he acted earlier was a prank, or a joke. But he didn't come back. He just left like that, knowing how much his words cut me. My life was really a mess, and it felt as though the goddess was holding a grudge against me, making me go through such awful things. When I thought he had finally accepted me, he pushed our child away even before meeting it. Hot tears ran down my eyes, followed by choking sobs. My heart was breaking. I don't deserve all the pain I was going through here, when all I wanted was to love. My whole body quivered with wrenching moans, and I struggled to keep still. I wanted to keep myself together, but it wasn't working. Even Ashley was sharing in my misery. I went back to my room, but Carla was not there. I was hoping I could cry on her shoulders since she was the only one here who was on my side. I was sure my cousin Kurt went out with the alpha, and even if he didn't, I wouldn't know how to pour my heart to him. This was a pain I couldn't carry alone, but I was too weak to even garner the will to leave here. A steward brought me food, but I couldn't bring myself to go close to it because I had zero appetite, leaving the food to grow cold, same as lunch and dinner. I had no enthusiasm to taste anything. I couldn't do anything else but cry myself to sleep, wrapping my body and hugging my arms around myself. As soon as I slumbered into dreamland, I heard my father's voice calling out my name repeatedly, and soon I could see him in chains with bruises all over his body, calling for help and asking me to come save him. My eyes fluttered open, and at first everywhere was so dark, I thought I was still dreaming, but soon realized I was in my room, and this was reality. I gasped, clutching the pillow soaked with my sweat. I got up abruptly as it dawned on me that this wasn't just a nightmare, but was real. My dad needed me right now. I checked the clock by my bedstand and was relieved to see that I still had few hours before dawn and had been only asleep for an hour. I rushed to the closet and took some of Carla's clothes, as I didn't really have good clothes to wear here. I put on a pair of jeans and a simple top, ones that could allow me run and be free. Thankfully, I wasn't feeling as weak as I felt earlier in the day. I dropped a written note for Carla to let her know I left on my own and wasn't in any trouble so as not to make her worried about me. "Good decision, Emma. Our mate doesn't deserve us anyway," I heard Ashley say in my head with a determined stance. I was hurting so bad inside, but I knew I had to leave, especially now that my father needed my help. My father, who my own mate couldn't protect simply because of the law his father made. If the werewolf realm had supported my father and his mate, my mother, maybe she would be alive today and my life wouldn't have to be such a spectacular mess at this point. I would go rescue my father, and we would go back to our home in the human realm, the only place where we weren't treated horribly, and there I'd have my baby and protect him or her, and my father. I was all I needed to be happy, and I'd definitely be happy with or without my mate. It hurt, but I would heal. It would take decades for the scar to fade, but I'd have my child and my father by my side to fill the hole. I ranted in my head as I crept out of the castle, past the snoring royal guards as silently as I could. I was meant to be their Luna Queen, but here I was crawling about like a wanted spy. A prisoner. I wasn't scared that they could stop me. I was scared I might hurt them if they tried to. Everywhere was quiet, aside the heavy sound of the wave from the sea. The crescent moon cast a dim glow over the atmosphere. According to the map of the realm I saw in Zyke's room, I was meant to go the opposite way from the castle, but I had to shift first so as to blend in as much as possible. "Ready, Ashley?" I asked my wolf, who was acting more determined than I was. She nodded. "We have to be careful because of the pup, Emma," she chipped in, reminding me of the new being forming inside me. I really was trying to get used to the change, even though I wasn't ready for it. I shifted and began running towards the border, where the guards were more alert and active than the ones at the castle pack house. They were about 5 of them, standing in my way at first, and started screaming for me to stop, or they were going to shoot. But I didn't stop, and kept running towards them fearlessly as the diamond necklace around my neck began to glow brightly. A dazzling white portal appeared in front of me, so I instinctively sprinted swiftly into its twirling lights before the sounds of gunshot blasted out like a bout of thunder into the night air. They were shooting right at me, but it didn't get to me because I was already in the portal. Alpha Zyke. I couldn't concentrate on what was being discussed at the meeting in Green Forest Pack. I was restless, and so was Black. Our mate was in so much pain, and we could feel it deep in our soul. How could we leave her like that, in that condition and state? Curse your ego and anger issues. Zyke, I groveled at myself, sipping the 3rd glass of brandy for tonight. I couldn't go face her after the meeting, so I went to one of my favorite bars in my pack with Curtis. I wanted to drown myself in alcohol before going back to meet her. I don't think I would be able to look into her eyes in a sober mood, and somehow the alcohol was beginning to do its job in my head. I wasn't really a heavy drinker, and I was past my limit, which is 2 glasses already. Curtis kept asking me what was going, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him. I simply asked him to be my drinking buddy for the night without asking questions. Mint was usually my drinking buddy, as Curtis never took alcohol except on extremely rare occasions, but Mint was usually the busiest among us because of his career path. So he must be busy, except one of his flings came to him for a work break snack or whatever he calls his promiscuous activities. I'm not in any position to judge him, though. I have done worse before meeting my mate. After meeting her, I literally lost interest in any other female. I never meant to hurt her, but I just wasn't ready to be a father. I wasn't ready for all the responsibly fatherhood demanded, and most of all, I wasn't one bit ready to share my mate. I wanted to have her all to myself as long as I can, all for me alone. My father ignored me all through my childhood years, till I became grown enough to handle some of the pack issues. In fact, he finally gave me attention after I came back from college. Why would he have me when he wasn't even ready to raise a child was the question I asked myself throughout my adolescence, and that was why I vowed never to have kids when I wasn't ready. All those memories came crashing in on me when my mate told me about the pregnancy this morning, so I couldn't hold myself back and my awful outburst to her. Curtis tapped me, telling me it was late already and we should start heading to the pack house. I knew how frustrated he would be feeling right now. I made him sit with me for hours without saying a word to him. Whatever it is bothering you, I'm sure a good night rest will help, he allowed gently. Easier said, I thought in my mind. I nodded and helped myself up. My legs felt wobbly, and I couldn't hold my body up properly. It was a good thing the bar was usually evacuated whenever I came to drink. Imagine how my pack member would feel seeing their alpha king looking drunk and miserable this way. Curtis drove us to the pack house in silence, helping me up to the 6th floor before heading back to his own wing. I was still drunk, but tried to comport myself a bit more before opening the door of my mate's room. It was dark, so I entered and clapped twice, causing the light in the room to come on. However, my mate wasn't anywhere in sight, and I couldn't get her smell, so I went to my own room and switched on the lights, certain that Emma would be lying on my bed, waiting for me. However, to my horror, she wasn't here either, and I couldn't feel her smell or presence. I gulped hard, and without much ado, mind-linked all the guards in the castle to start searching the whole premises for her. She couldn't have just disappeared like that, right? Let's not panic, Zeke. I tried to convince myself, and by this time I was completely sober. I raced to the beach, combing the whole atmosphere with my heightened eyesight, searching everywhere for her. I was hoping with all my heart that she hadn't been kidnapped again and doesn't get hurt before I could reach her. Your Grace. A voice behind interrupted my train of thought. I turned around to see Mendez standing with his head bowed. Yes, Mendez. Any clue of my mate? I asked, knowing that some of the royal guards were aware that Emma was my mate after the ball. There is a report reaching us now from the border about a wolf with golden furs escaping the realm through a portal at the boundary. Mendez informed, causing my blood to run cold. I froze, gazing blankly at the head of the royal guards. How long has this been, Mendez? I mustered the courage to ask. About an hour ago, Your Grace, he affirmed. You may go. I dismissed him because I was about to break down, and it wouldn't look nice doing it in front of my subject. I turned to face the sea, clutching my heart as it continued to sink and shred. She is gone, I thought regrettably. She left after waiting for me all day, and if I was an hour earlier, if I didn't go for that damn drink, I would have been able to meet her. And maybe stop her. Explain why I flared up like that. Talk about everything from the scratch. Damn you, Zyke. I don't think I have ever loathed myself this much before. Emma. It was like a flash of blinding lights as I was thrown out of the portal. 1 minute, I was in a dark forest surrounded by 5 men, and in the next, I was standing before a really tall mansion filled with lights that looked like the burning sun. It was still nighttime, but there was so much light here it looked like daytime. I could feel and smell my father more strongly here, and just like the other time, I knew exactly where to find him. But there were few problems. 1, I have to shapeshift, but there was nothing here to cover myself with after that. 2, I had no idea what this place was or if it was the human realm, because it didn't look like it. What do we do? I asked Ashley, remembering what happened the last time I stepped into an unknown territory. Let's just stay alert for now, Ashley suggested, making me feel safer than I would have felt if she had ignored me like the last time. I looked around, trying to make sense of what the place was, even though it was obvious I haven't been here before. I could feel my father's presence strongly, but I couldn't reach him in my mind. It seems as if he was blocking me out for some reason. Aha! Something doesn't smell right, Emma. I smell silver! She yelled, and we started retreating gradually, causing me to bump into someone from the back. I turned swiftly to see a tall man in jacket holding a sharp, glistering silver spear to us. He wasn't smiling at all, so I turned the other way to maybe make a run for it, but about 3 other men were approaching me, walking menacingly. Ashley shrunk into herself as we were both feeling cornered and visibly terrified. I growled loudly, trying to scare them as well, but they didn't even budge. I think I'm in trouble. No, stop! I suddenly heard my father's voice from a distance. He was running towards me, probably from the tall mansion. You'll scare her. I could see my father now. He dashed to where I was, dragged the spears from the men aggressively, but they didn't struggle with him, and threw them all away before coming to where I stood. He squatted and wrapped his hands around me and patted my furs gently, in a way that calmed me and soothed my shivers. It's okay, baby. Daddy is here. He muttered and continued caressing my furs. Your wolf is so beautiful, Em. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you first shifted. It's every father's dream to see their child's first shift, you know. He was almost sobbing now, so I snuggled my head into his embrace to show him it was okay. Someone cleared his throat noisily in an attempt to get our attention. I raised my head from my father's chest to see a really, really tall, beautiful man standing in front of me. He was dressed like royalty, with flowing silver hair and an amused look in his face. I'm sorry to interrupt such a heart-rending reunion after so long, but she has to shift to her human form, Elgin. He spoke with so much confidence and ease. Who was he anyway? And why was he saying my dad's name that way? Wait, I thought my dad was in trouble here, no? My father, who was looking better than he was the last time I saw him, with good clothes too, stood up to face the beautiful man who I was seeing as arrogant now. She's not a threat to anyone, King. My father said with equal confidence as well. He stood beside me so I felt safe even in the presence of unknown intimidating men. I'm not saying she is, but her presence might scare my subjects. He folded his arms across his chest. She's a really huge wolf, and I'm sure many of them have never seen one here, so please understand. He was talking like a supernatural creature as well, and he gave off the vibe of one. My father even called him king, and he was talking about his subjects just now. Was he a wizard king? Pixie? Well, he looked too big to belong to pixies. What was he then, I wondered indifferently. She would need something to cover with, and she can't shift in the presence of so many men. Father said guardedly. The tall man nodded and signaled the other men holding spears a few minutes ago, and they all zapped out of the place with the speed of lightning. Oh my God, are they vampires? My eyes widened in shock. I retreated from my father's hold, wanting to leave here right now. These monsters killed my mother. My father sensed my discomfort, so he squatted again and tried calming me down. I really hope he had a good explanation for being here with people who are meant to be his enemies. Just then, a tiny female who looked like she would pass out from shock handed my father a big blanket before hiding behind the king, who gave my father the "I told you so" look. My father turned to face me and covered the blanket around me. You can shift now, child, he uttered softly, and then took some steps back to give me space. I finally shifted, but was too weak to hold myself up. I noticed my cheeks were wet with tears and my hair was a mess. I would have been really cold if not for the blanket that was wrapped around me. My father was about to help me up when the pretty king stopped him, saying, "Let me," and wrapped the cover cloth around me properly before hurling me into his arms like a little child that weighed nothing. I was feeling too weak to hold myself up, but I tried as much as I could because I didn't want to rest my head on his chest. If it was left for me, I wouldn't let him carry me at all. But I was too exhausted to argue or even walk to wherever I was being taken to. Nevertheless, I wasn't scared. My father, who was following us closely behind, was here after all. Carla. Mint made a run for the castle, leaving me with wet thighs and curious thoughts. I wondered how bad the emergency was for him to leave that way, at least for now. I couldn't tell him my real name. I have no family, no background, no career or education, and no one had cared to ask until now. The lies keep getting bigger, and I'm never someone who would lie to a person I care about, so my decision was to stay away from him until I would have enough guts to tell him the truth. And I would only do that when I feel I am deserving of him. I cannot and will never marry someone from one of the most prestigious family as nothing and with nothing. That would be if Mint doesn't reject me when he finds out that I was just a rankless wolf who lied and deceived him. I have to be my own person, stand on my feet, be more than a rankless she-wolf, and even if he doesn't accept me, I can live without anyone as a person who is independent. I stared at the beach house one last time, my heart tugging in my chest and sinking at the same time, knowing he would come here by 9 tomorrow and wouldn't find me. I would disappear from his life and never show up till I feel I would be able to stand a rejection. With that crushing feeling, I went back to the 6th floor, hoping he was not anywhere near the main castle. Even though I'm back to being the ordinary Carla, I know how strong the mate bond is, and that would be enough to expose me immediately he sets his eyes on me. I successfully sneaked into the room I shared with Emma, hoping to tell her everything, including my decision, but as soon as I opened the door, the room was empty with all the lights on. I walked inside, believing she might be at the Alpha's room having a time of her life, but a piece of paper lying on the bedside table caught my eyes. I picked it up while taking off my blonde wig from my sweaty scalp. It was Emma's tiny handwriting. I froze as I read the first line, screaming, "What?" out loud, like Emma was here to hear. It read, "Dearest Carla, I'm really sorry you'll be hearing about my departure this way, and not personally. I waited for you, but got tired at some point and an emergency came up, so I had to leave as soon as possible. We have always talked about my leaving, so this shouldn't be a surprise to you. I'm simply writing to let you know I'm safe and you don't have to worry. Take care of yourself, Carl. Be happy, please. Do what makes you happy, and show the world you are much more than the rankless wolf they see you as. I hope things work out with Mint, too. Wish I could hear the details. Love, warm hugs and kisses, Emma XX." I dashed to the Alpha's room with the note, but found Mint in front of the door, so I retreated back to the room, gave one of the guards heading towards the Alpha's room. I wonder how bad he had messed up this time, to think I was happy that Emma had finally given up on leaving. My legs crumbled on the floor as I wept into the night. My heart was breaking for myself and my friend. I knew she was going through so much, but would never let her feelings show. Life has always been so unfair to us. Third-person point of view. It was nearing dawn, but while every other person was asleep, Trisha was arranging healing books back in the shelf they belong according to their chronological order. She was alone as usual. The healing books weren't like the abracadabra books of spells, which were only found in the wizard realm, although Trisha would kill to have a sneak peek at just one of them. They were books that contained herbs and how to use them, or mix them with other herbs to aid healing or release. Trisha had been curious about books, all kinds of books, since she was really young, and even though she didn't have the alpha blood as she wasn't a biological child of Zyke's father, she knew she was somewhat of a salutary wolf. Although she didn't go ahead to study modern-day medicine, she helped lots of helpless wolves and rankless wolves find aid and relief from their various illnesses. She had stopped resenting her birth parents, who she didn't even know what they look like or their names or where they came from, and promised herself since she turned 18 that she would go find them when she turns 21. She was 20 now, so she had 1 year left to stay in the pack house where she had lived all her life, and deep down, she longed to see the world. They might be dead or alive. They might have a good reason to drop her at the door of the pack house, though she doesn't think she would ever understand what their reasons were. She just wanted to find her roots, her identity, to know who she really was. Amidst all her calm, happy, and matured facade was a crushing insecurity of being a nobody, even though she was bearing the last name of the Alpha King's lineage. But what she was most worried about right now wasn't her identity or whatnot. She was worried about her older brother, one of the people who had proven to be a realer family than her own family. She would go and see him after waking up, which means she have to sleep now. It was a good thing she made the construction team carve out her own room in the library, as she literally lived here, and on days like these, when she worked late into the night. Walking to the main castle to the 5th floor, where her real room was a hassle she wouldn't want to undertake. Finally, it was the last book, but the spaces within her reach have all been filled up, and she was too lazy to get the fancy ladder she uses to keep books in their place. So as a 4 feet person, she stretched so high she was literally on her toes, but still wasn't able to reach the space. "Let's try harder, Trisha," she muttered breathlessly, but before she knew it, a hand from behind took the book from her and placed it into the upper space with ease. Curtis. Trisha knew it was him even without looking. She shuddered at the sensation that came with his closeness but turned to face him. He was staring down at her, but she didn't bother to meet his gaze, taking few steps away from him so she could think properly. His presence relieves her of every ounce of rationality, the ever-caring, kind, responsible, and selfless Curtis. She never could tell if he really liked her or he was being kind to her like he was to everyone. Still, she refuses to let him see how attracted she was to him, because even though he really liked her as she sensed, she didn't think she would ever be able to love any other person or share her heart, emotion, and soul. And what if they fell in love with each other and found out later that they weren't mates? Maybe he finds his own mate or she finds her own mate after investing so much emotions into the relationship. So for now, she would pretend as though he doesn't even exist, easier said. What are you doing here, Kurt?" She finally gathered the courage to look up at him. Her breath caught in her throat at the way his green hair blended seamlessly into the library electric lights. His brown cat eyes boring into hers caused heat to rise in her cheeks. She noticed lines of worried frowns on his forehead. "Is something wrong?" "It's the Alpha," Kurt replied, heaving a sigh. "What's wrong with him? Is he hurt again?" she asked, alarmed, feeling bile rise in her throat. "He almost died the last time, barely surviving the spear's injuries." She had almost passed out seeing him in a pool of blood when they rushed him to the pack house that night. No, Trish, he isn't hurt physically," he blurted out. "His mate left, and he is throwing a fit of rage. I've seen him angry several times, but he's literally losing his mind right now." "Emma left? Wasn't she supposed to begin work at the library tomorrow?" Trisha thought, feeling confused. "Are you sure she wasn't kidnapped like the last time?" "How sure are you that she left?" she asked him in doubt. "She left a note in her room for her personal maid to assure her that she is safe," Curtis explained, dipping his hands into his long black coat pocket. "He's been in rooms smashing things since then. No one has been able to pacify him, not me, not even Mint." Trisha sighed and took on her cloth. She wasn't surprised at all. In fact, she supported Emma for leaving. How could her brother eat his cake and expect him to have it back? She actually thought they were back together, and finally happy. But she also knew that Zyke's mate wouldn't leave. Just leave him like that. Emma had got to be one of the strongest females she had ever met, sticking to her arrogant and possessive brother despite all he put her through. With Curtis following behind her, she raced to her brother's room at the main wing of the castle. True to Curtis's words, the sound of crashing glasses and furniture was coming from the room. His personal steward stood at the door of his room, visibly trembling with fright. "You may all leave," Trisha commanded, and they all bolted out from the floor, like fire were on their heels. Mint had gone up with some hunter wolves to see if the Alpha's mate was still around the realm. The crashing stopped, and then a sonorous, loud, angry growl that could only come from the Alpha erupted from the room, causing the core of the castle to tremble. Before Trisha could knock on the door, it burst open. A stranger whose eyes were glowing with so rage stormed out of the room. He suddenly turned into someone she couldn't recognize, and it dawned on her that there was no amount of placating and pacifying they could that would calm him down. Trisha slapped her hands on her face in frustration as Curtis stared helplessly at her. She was usually the last resort whenever her brother was in such mood. However, today wasn't one of the days she was capable of doing anything. "Tell Mint to meet me us at the Wizard Realm, right now!" Zyke bellowed at Curtis with his deep, guttural, alpha voice and stormed off. "Please follow him, Kurt, and help me minimize the trouble he's going to cause," Trisha begged, her eyes brimming with tears. She knew she sounded selfish right now, but if she knew where Emma was at this point, she would have gone to kneel, beg, and do everything within her power to bring her back. Her brother might lose his mind if he doesn't see his mate soon. Third-person point of view. Are you sure that incense in her room will be enough to hide her smell from that savage? Vladimir asked the young rogue sorcerer for the millionth time. "Yes, my king," he affirmed with a deep bow and stood waiting for the next instruction. "I would need you to do something else for me, but that would be after I see how she reacts to me," Vladimir drawls. "But for now, you may go and have fun. I hope you like your new room?" he asked while dismissing the young wizard. The boy bowed to him with a subtle grin before leaving Vladimir's office. The Vampire King grins to himself before going to Emma's room, his golden trophy, he thought. Since that savage alpha couldn't appreciate the once-in-a-lifetime gift from the goddess, him, Vladimir, would be more than obliged to take it from the werewolf king. Vladimir had no idea Emma was that beautiful. She made his heart stir when he saw her shift to her human wolf. He would give or do anything to be mated to such extraordinary being. To think that all he wanted to use her to gain more power, but he wasn't expecting her eyes to be so blue. He didn't expect so see such fragility, such delicacy laced with so much power. He doubted she was aware of the extent of her powers. He sent those men first to see if she knew how much powers she had, and her reaction told him she didn't. But that was okay. He is here to teach her and then make her his. I would make her mine? Vladimir thought with determination, but he was still quiet, uncertain as to how to approach her, what words to say to her and the likes. It was a good thing his father killed her mum. They would have been sibling now, and she probably wouldn't even have the powers she was endowed with as the first ever hybrid. Even though he has been able to convince Emma's father to stay back here in the realm, he still didn't know how Emma would take it. Would she agree to be his queen? He would have to know if she was still in love with her mate first, take him out of the way, then take her to himself. The door of the room her kept her the previous night was already open when he came in. Maids were setting up her breakfast, while she stood at the window staring blankly into space. She was putting on a large-sized white bathrobe, while the dress he asked them to prepare for her was lying uselessly on the bed. Was she thinking about her mate? Vladimir cleared my throat loudly to get her attention, but the maids skittered out of the room as soon as they noticed his presence. She turned and walked to where he stood, her stoic expression making his heartbeat increase rapidly. "Good morning," he greeted, making sure his charming smile was in place. "Hope you slept well?" She stood a few meters from him, subconsciously making sure that the robe was appropriately covering her body. "Who are you, and what is this place?" she asked, taking Vladimir off guard with her sternness. "This is the Vampire Kingdom in Big Country of Russia, Princess, and I'm Vladimir Chekhov, the Vampire King." He introduced himself politely, sending her an easy smile. "Your father killed my mother, Vladimir," she spat with so much spite. "Thank you for your hospitality, but I have to get my father. We need to leave here at once." "And go where, Princess?" Vladimir asked with his unnerving voice, but Emma didn't flinch one bit. "We have a home, and I have no idea why you keep calling me a princess. FYI, my father is not a king." I don't know what FYI mean, but I am not my father, Emma. Neither do I plan to be like him. I've been searching for you for ages to right all the wrongs my family have wreaked on yours. Please don't see me the same way you see my realm." He lied with so much ease, ambling closer to her as he spoke, but she took steps back to maintain the space between them. "If I wanted revenge, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, King." She said the word king with traces of mockery. "I just have to leave with my father. I really appreciate all you have done for real, but I didn't come here to spend a night. I came here to take my father home." Vladimir felt amused. Her fierceness when it came to protecting her father literally turned him on. He wondered how such hot blood would taste in his tongue, or her wet juices. She just became his kinky obsession. He smiled and took a few steps back, raising his hands in surrender. All right, sure. You can leave with your father. He's in the next room from yours. But to show you're really grateful and you hold no grudge against me, I would love to have just one meal with you before you leave, Emma." He flashed her his killer smile, knowing that she wouldn't have the conscience to turn his request for a meal down. What could go wrong with just eating together? Nothing, right? She sighed in resignation. Just one meal. She repeated, and he nodded with another wide grin, displaying his gap tooth that drove even virgin vamp females wild. She might fall for it at some point. Let's just keep trying, Vladimir thought, as he was about to leave the room. One more thing, he spoke up, turning to face her expressionless face. I would really love to see how you look in that gown, though. I picked it out myself. No pressure, just to add more color and spice. Your dad would be dressing up, too. Her pale skin be beyond appetizing in that dress. He was sure of it. She glanced at the gown on the bed and stared back at me without even raising an eyebrow or a single reaction. I'll put it on if I feel comfortable with it, she said, retying her robe even though it was well tied initially, but Vladimir took it as an approval. A maid should be here to escort you to the diner in 20 minutes' time. I'm sure you'll be done by then. He smiled one last time before leaving. This should be fun, he chuckled mentally. He had some things to sort out first. Emma. One look in the Vampire King's caddish brown eyes, I knew what he wanted. However, I was completely done with males. All I wanted to do was get my father out of here. Besides, I know the only reason he wanted me was to use me, not really that he liked me or gave an F about who I really was aside being a golden wolf thing. Few minutes into the lunch, he suggested we share. My head was swooning, and soon it got to a point where I had to stop eating because I couldn't keep my eyes open. Was it the pregnancy? My father seemed worried, and I haven't really told him anything yet, as we have not had time to talk. My head dropped languidly on the dining table. I couldn't care less if it would make the woman Vladimir introduced as his stepmother stare at me with disgust. She hadn't even bothered to let out a smile since we began eating, or even pretend to smile. Not that I care a bit, though. I felt too weak to care. It seemed as if my limbs weren't mine anymore. The beautiful long black dress I wore suddenly felt too tight and suffocating. My insides felt as though it was on fire. I was fighting for breathe, finding so hard to breathe. I could hear my father asking if I was okay with a raised and agitated voice. I felt someone carry me up the stairs and laid me on a bed. I want to go home. I whispered as tears slid down my left eye. Third-person point of view. The poison started working faster than Vladimir expected. Or was it something else? When he carried Emma to the room, her whole body was burning, and it felt as though life was slipping out of her. But that wasn't the plan, though. She was meant to see him as her mate so he could have her all to himself, and after that, she might get used to him as time goes on. And she would have no choice but to stay here and rule beside him as his queen. He stared down at her as she writhed under the sheets, gasping for air faintly, her forehead covered with sweat. Elgin Price sat beside his daughter, wiping the sweat away with a wet towel, refusing to let anyone else do it. Vladimir summoned the young sorcerer to his office at once, but the young lad assured him that Emma would be fine, and her body was simply fighting the poison due to how strong her wolf was. She better be, he thought in frustration. It took so much for him to make sure the kitchen servants added the poison specifically to her food, as it was a rare poison, according to the sorcerer. It had to work, Vladimir hoped. He couldn't wait to fuck her, till she becomes his, and his alone. Alpha Zyaik. The Wizard King's advisor's neck was securely nestled in my firm grasp. His wriggling legs were few inches above the ground, his hands clutching my hands and struggling to detach them from his neck. Peter, his king, was standing close to his throne, cowering like the coward he was. He couldn't do much even if he wanted to, as my Beta and Gamma was standing by his side in case he dared to try to act funny. I tightened my grasp, squeezing harder. "Where is my mate?" I asked him with a louder growl. Black was on the surface now, and he was ready to tear anyone and everyone apart this instant if we didn't find our mate right now. I have to no idea, Alpha, he let out with a forced and throaty sound. I bet he does. He was seriously trying to avoid my gaze as though he knew something I didn't, and I wouldn't leave here until I get it out from him, even if it means squeezing life out of him. Let him go? I'll tell you what we know. Peter screamed from where he stood with a quivering voice. Go ahead, I nodded at him, my hands still wrapped around his advisor's neck. We know she isn't in your realm anymore, but we can't tell for sure where she is because it seems as if another sorcerer is using a strong magic to block out anyone from following her trace, which is why you haven't been able to feel or sense her no matter how hard you try. He uttered hurriedly, but clear enough for me to be shocked for a moment. How did these guys know I couldn't sense my mate since she left? And how did hell did they know she even left in the first place? I dropped the old wizard like a bag of trash and ambled towards the Wizard King where he was almost trembling. I wasn't brimming with fury anymore, but with shock and confusion. Have you low-lives been keeping an eye on my mate? I asked with my hands resting on my side, which was itching to give the snitch a fitting punch. I came all the way to the wizard realm to get information about my mate, since I couldn't reach her like I did the last time she was kidnapped. But here I was hearing a different story entirely. Who wouldn't keep an eye on a golden wolf? Neil spoke out, coughing rigorously from where he crouched on the bare floor, holding his throat. I mean, you don't delude yourself into thinking you're the only one who want her, right? He said out of spite to get me riled up. The Wizard King motioned weakly to his guards to carry Neil out of the throne room. I was too stunned to think of doing anything to him. My heart simply ripped apart at the old sorcerer's words. I wanted my mate back because I can't live without her anymore. I didn't care if she is a golden wolf or whatever. She is carrying my child, and I have no idea where she was or where to start finding her from. I felt doomed, like my life was totally over. What if she was in danger right now? How will I ever live with myself if I totally lose her? Regret, guilt, remorse nagged at me as I felt tears born from deep heartache welling from my eyes. I blinked the tears back and turned to the Wizard King. Who is that rogue sorcerer, and why do you think he is trying to block out her smell? I tried to keep my voice hardened as it was. I didn't want these dogs to think they have succeeded in breaking my spirit. The werewolf realm was stronger than every other supernatural realm for a reason, and other kings could never stand up to the Alpha King. I have no idea, Alpha, he said, still unable to hold my gaze. The magic used by the sorcerer has been forbidden by my father before his demise. It is an extremely strong magic, and it would take a lot of time for us to get through it. 3 days, I stated. You have 3 days to get through that damn magic, or the next time I'll visit, I'll be bringing ruin with me. Do you understand? Yes, Alpha, he affirmed with a light bow. I strode out of the room with Curtis by my right and Mint by my left. I headed back to my realm and summoned the hunter wolves to comb through the human realm till they find my mate. I wouldn't rest until I found her and brought her back to where she belonged. She belongs with me. I want her. I need her. And I wasn't ashamed to admit that I would lose my mind if I don't have her in my arms. Besides, I was burning with the heat from the haze. I knew she would be feeling it too. We are not supposed to be apart, but I keep messing things up. Mint. By 9 p.m. the next day, I rushed to the beach house to meet Isabel. Since the disappearance of Alpha Zyke's mate, the pack house have been on a roller coaster of activities like moving about, searching for clues on how to find Emma, and the likes. The Alpha have been pretty much unstable, and the number of patients I attend to on a daily basis seems to have increased drastically, like the whole universe was against me seeing my mate. But all that didn't deter me from rushing down to the beach house 10 minutes earlier, because I wanted to give her a real threat today. I stopped at the grocery store to get ingredients I needed to make spaghetti bolognese. I was choosing that dish because it was the most challenging dish for me to learn. It wasn't like I really liked cooking, but I ate it so much during my years in medical school that I told myself I just had to learn how to make it. And I had to make it for my mate. I have so much I want to do with her, and for her, they are so many. I think I should start making a list of them. She would actually be the first female I would be shamelessly flaunting my cooking skills to. Not that I'm that good anyway, I thought, scowling at myself as I walked into the semi-detached kitchen Curtis, Zyke, and I built for grilling meat. I couldn't remember the last time we made use of it. But it was neat and tidied, as some maids were designated to come clean every nook and cranny of our hideout as often as possible. Zik called it the Royal Hideout, but life got in the way, and we became too busy to gather together like we usually did before I went to medical school. Zik became Alpha, and Curtis went to study music. I brought back my wandering mind to the task at hand, arranging the items I would be needing. I checked my watch to realize that I have only 5 minutes for her to be here. I was meant to come earlier if I wanted to make this dish, as the bolognese sauce takes hours to get ready, but work was so pressing, and I even had to check the Alpha's blood temperature as he has been burning hot since last night due to the heat, especially since he is the Alpha and has already mated and marked his mate. I was feeling the heat already, especially now that I have found my mate. That was why I wanted to meet her family, and for her to meet mine so we could get married as soon as possible. Although I didn't know her much yet, but from the day I saw her again at the reception hall of my hospital, I realized she was more than enough for me, and my family would be real proud, especially my grandparents. I actually cursed myself for not getting to know the particular pack she came from. At least, however, it wasn't my fault, and I'm not sure it would matter that much, as I could be seeing her in a few minutes' time. I hummed "As Long as You Love Me" lyrics by Westlife cheerfully as I folded back the sleeves of my shirt so they don't get wet when I dip my hands into water. For the sauce, I would be using beef and pork, then a little chicken livers for taste. What if she was a vegan? I was too excited about making this dish for me to consider such an important detail. That was why I wanted to know more about her then, but we were distracted. Not anyone's fault either way. I started the preparation in full swing, placing the champagne on the table in the sitting room. We would use this opportunity to continue the celebration of her birthday, which we couldn't do the day before. The time was 10 minutes past 9, and she still hadn't arrived. Maybe she was running late due to some issue, but it would give my sauce some more time to cook, so no worries. I drowned myself into getting everything set that I didn't even realize it was 10 o'clock already. And this time I was worried. The pasta was ready while the sauce was still cooking in low heat, so it won't get cold by the time she arrives. I left it all in the kitchen and went out of the beach house through the main door, looking around the seaside, its bank, to see if she was around the vicinity. I sniffed hard but couldn't catch her smell, which meant she wasn't close at all. I went back in with my hopes and expectations intact, but soon it was midnight, and Isabel was nowhere to be found. I waited for another 2 hours before throwing out all the dishes I worked so hard to make. I slept back at the beach house because I was too tired to drive back home, harboring a faint hope that she might show up unannounced, but there was still no trace of her. I went to the hospital the next day, more tired than my car tires, telling the receptionist to send in the girl of that night, straight to my office if she shows up. But Isabel didn't show up. Worst thing was, I didn't even have her phone number or any way to reach her for that matter. It felt as though I saw her in my imagination and not in real life, like she never existed at all. I started to imagine what if she had an accident while coming to see me, or she died the next day, or fell ill before the time we promised to meet. I just kept thinking of so many what-ifs. Life, my grandpa always say, what if really tortures people? I rushed to the beach house an hour earlier than the day before, waited and waited till midnight, but she still didn't show up, and the same thing the next day, again, all the while ignoring my girlfriend's calls. I wanted to tell her about my mate the next time I meet her, but she would never believe till she really sees proof. I felt disheartened as I waited for my mate the third day, a crushing sensation enveloping me. Why was I needing someone this much who didn't need me one bit? Did I do something wrong the last time we met? Was she feeling rejected after I turned down her request for sex? I couldn't wrap the whole situation properly around my head. I just downed bottles upon bottles of alcohol like a miserable and frustrated jilted goom, still wishing that I would have the opportunity to see her again. And that time I would never let her out of my sight for any reason. Carla, I watched with heaviness of guilt from a safe distance hidden long grasses and shrubs as the beach house came aglow with lights. A figure which was definitely Mint was walking about inside the house, and then walked into the detached house, turning on the lights too. It wasn't a glass house, but the bricks were transparent, so I could see only shadows and lights. I would have been able to see more if I wasn't a rankless wolf. I haven't come to meet him here for the third day now, but here he was waiting for me like a hopeless lover. My heart sank with guilt as I thought of how much he would be feeling hurt and disappointed by now. He would realize I was intentionally avoiding him, which I was, but I had no idea how long I would be able to keep it up. Even though we haven't consummated our bonds, I felt the mate bond as well. I wanted him so bad and couldn't stop thinking about him. Seeing him like this doesn't make things any easier, and I believe leaving this castle, this pack, would be the best option for me to be able to live with myself while trying to find a middle ground. Forgive me, Mint. I just want to be someone better, not just for my sake, but for you as well. Vladimir, why isn't she waking up? Emma's father asked, worried to his bone. He hadn't been eating because his daughter couldn't eat. It's been almost 3 days. What exactly is the problem? He was running out of patience, and I had to act fast before he decided to take her away from here. I called the sorcerer and introduced him in such a way Elgin would think he was the royal physician. The sorcerer then told Elgin to leave the room. He had to make some concoctions Elgin wasn't meant to see. The worried father hesitated at first, but left eventually. I stayed behind and locked the door firmly after him, after which the sorcerer approached where Emma laid and began murmuring spells. There were close to 15 red candles flicking their lights all over and making our shadows dance like ghosts on the wall. An incense burned just above Emma's head, filling the air with some menthol, peppermint aura, and I stood staring at the sorcerer still murmuring his gibberish. All of a sudden, he paused and stared at me. "She'd wake up soon," he quipped, "and you should be here when she does." "Okay. When she sees you, she'd think you're her mate. You can then mark her on the same spot she was marked by her mate. That would nullify their attachment, make her all yours forever." Great. I rubbed my palms in anticipation. Not only would I mark her, I'd have the chance to suck some fucking blood, I thought to myself. And while we still spoke, we noticed movement on the bed as Emma stirred. Emma. I instantly took in the environment with my eyes flickering open. It was unfamiliar, but seemed as if I had been here for a while now. The room was dimly lit with shadows of 2 people which turned to one before I sat up on the bed. The room choked with smoke and instantly made me dizzy. I felt stronger than last time, though, yet I couldn't remember what exactly made me feel that way. I tried communicating with Ashley but couldn't feel her presence in my mind. I panicked. My wolf could sense danger faster and was meant to be with me at all times. "Emma," I heard Zyke's voice from the side of the room, and as I raised my head, he was standing before me. What was my mate doing here? Was he supposed to be here in the first place? I wondered, sitting more properly on the bouncy bed. He came to my bed and sat close to me, taking my hand in his. Something felt off and different about him, but I couldn't place it. Everything just felt wrong and unnatural right now, like I was in a simulation of some sort. He was putting on a kind of priestly robe I had never seen him wear. I only saw him in joggers and polo shirt mostly, then suits on rare occasions, and his black hair looked longer than usual. "How are you feeling, Emma?" His violet eyes were filled with need and emotion which resurrected my hormones. "You've been unwell for a while now, and I've been so worried about you." I'd been unwell for a while? Why couldn't I remember it that way? I recalled us having a fight and him yelling and walking out on me in a manner that caused me so much pain. But why was he here now? And why wasn't I feeling mad at him anymore? I wanted him instead. I was having this burning sensation from my abdomen. He held my gaze steadily, caressing my hands with a kind of gentleness I had never felt from him before. I knew this person was my mate, all right, but why was I getting a stranger vibe from him even while I was feeling this horny? I want you too, Emma, he spoke softly. He wanted me too. He was reading my mind. He looked a bit skinnier than usual. His firm and strong abs and biceps seemed totally different now, like he had suddenly lost shape. He sat back down, leaned forward, and kissed me slowly and sensuously, diving in tongue first, and almost ravaging my mouth in a manner that was completely different from how he usually kissed me. Then he left my mouth, working his way down to the crook of my neck, the same place he marked me back then. I shifted uncomfortably, ending the kiss as his lips on my skin was making me feel awkward. I wanted him bad, but we needed to talk first. I couldn't keep forgiving him and have him hurting me over and over again like a dummy. My hands instinctively went to my stomach before raising my head to meet his gaze. "What about the baby?" I asked with a steady voice. I was done being scared of his reaction or what he thought about our child. What?" he asked wide-eyed, staring at me in shock, which morphed into confusion in seconds. "The baby," I repeated with my hand on my belly. "There's a baby inside of you?" I didn't know what to say. This was totally new. His reaction threw me off guard. Could one get too shocked to the extent of forgetting vital stuff as me being pregnant? The last time I told him about it, he spat fire and pretty worked up. Surely he couldn't forget so fast, right? It hadn't even been up to a week I told him about it. Then I realized this was the realest reaction he had made since I woke up. He was so surprised he couldn't even mask it, couldn't hide his obliviousness about the pregnancy. A realization hit me. It sent cold shivers down my spine. I wasn't at the werewolf realm anymore. I had left. I had left after fighting with my mate, and I came to the vampire's realm to save my father, who was in trouble. And the vampire king helped me in and invited me to lunch. And that was the last time I could remember anything. My mate couldn't be in the vampire realm wearing a kingly robe with his bare chest and boxers short comfortably as though he was in his realm. I mean, werewolves and vamps were still enemies. And this person facing me right now had my mate's face but gave off a totally different feeling, an odd ambiance that didn't belong to my mate. I hadn't really lost my mind as I thought I had. This person wasn't my mate, or was he? "Emma, are you okay?" he asked. I totally forgot about the baby. I grabbed his neck with the staggering extent of my strength. My blood was boiling in rage, and I wanted to kill him right now for deceiving me. "Who the hell are you?" I asked viciously, tightening my grip around his neck. I was putting on a white robe that was about to loosen, but I didn't care. His eyes were almost popping out their socket. He looked stupefied, almost as if he hadn't seen my reaction coming. I could feel my wolf now, the colors of my eyes changing, my fingers transforming into long, sharp claws. But before I knew what was happening, he disappeared from my grip, and my fingers snapped close. It felt like I just tried grabbing the air. Next thing I saw was the pretty-faced vampire king standing at the door. How could he pull of such trickery? He almost had me fooled posing as my mate. Wait a sec, he actually poisoned me so I could see him as my mate? But why? What was he hoping to get? Sleep with me? No wonder he kept talking about making me a queen and shit. I zapped to where he stood at the speed of light and was about to grab him again when he raised his hands up as if in surrender. "Hold it, Fire Girl," he ordered. "Your father is in my custody, remember?" "Now I see everything," I said, trying not to let my voice falter in front of this coward. "You lured me here by making me believe my father was in trouble, then you made us believe you cared about us, trying to win our trust. You gave me something that made me bedridden, and the next thing you try to do is sleep with me using my mate's face? You a shoal," I yelled, feeling more enraged than I'd ever felt in ages. "Your mate is the bigger ass-hole for letting you out of his sight, Emma," he muttered, coughed, and laughed at the same time. "I'd never let you out of my grasp as long as I get the opportunity to ever lay my eyes on you." He was talking like a psychopath, and it irked me so much I wanted to tear him from limbs to limbs. "I'm leaving here with my father," I declared, hitting the door and flinging it open with all my strength. I tightened the robe around my body and stormed out of the room. "I'd love to see you try," he scoffed behind me, and as I came out of the room, I saw two men holding my father with a knife to his neck. I clenched and unclenched my fist, feeling power like electricity surge through me, but felt helpless at the same time, seeing my father held at knife point. We could tap into these powers you have to make this realm stronger, Emma. I want nothing but the best for us. I loved you from the very moment I set my eyes on you. He walked to stand in front of me, his colorful robe covering his skinny chest now. You sick bastard! Let my father go now! I growled at him, feeling my heart constrict with both pain and rage. But he grinned at me, like I issued empty threats, and I felt like a complete joke. Alpha Zweig. Mint, Curtis, and I sat on the high stools before the counter in our favorite bar. I downed multiple shots of brandy, hoping they'd somehow drown my misery. No one had been able to find my mate yet or locate where she was. My hunter wolves had combed through the human realm but came with nothing for the past 3 days. I have sent messenger wolves to the Wizard Kingdom, but the good-for-nothing Wizard King and his incompetent advisor still hadn't found anything, as little as even a clue to my mate's whereabouts. How the hell would I live my life without Emma? My soul was burning, sinking and shattering all at once, and I knew my life would never remain the same again if I didn't find her soon and put everything back as it was always meant to be. I couldn't even function without her. The elders of Green Forest Pack were asking for a new alpha, or they all didn't want the devious Alpha Agro as their alpha anymore and were expecting me, as the Alpha King, to come up with something or someone. But here I was drinking myself to stupor, losing my mind and hating everyone and everything. I couldn't perform my alpha duties anymore. Everything just felt like a waste of time without Emma. All I was hoping for was that she stayed safe till I was able to find her. I impulsively tightened my grip on my drinking glass with exasperation, but snapped out of it as one of my drinking buddies grunted absent-mindedly. Curtis and Mint weren't saying a word as well. They were both looking depressed and frustrated like myself, and to my utter dismay, Curtis was drinking alcohol, something he hadn't attempted for ages. My problem couldn't be the reason he was drinking, I thought, a little more concerned. "Spill, Kurt," I muttered, feeling too sober for my liking. "Yeah, spill, man. You're drinking today. What's on your mind?" Mint backed me up, placing his elbow on the counter and resting his head on his hand. At this point, there wasn't any rank between us. We were simply buddies who had each other's interest at heart, under the soothing, friendly influence of alcohol. "Are you guys still sober?" Curtis asked, staring down at the drink in his glass. Mint and I shook our heads to indicate of a no, understanding what he meant. He was asking if we were still sober because he wanted us to tell us what was bothering him and wouldn't want us to remember or talk about it again, because it might be embarrassing to him. We used it in context anyway. No matter how drunk we would always remember what our friend's troubles were about, but we would never bring it up again if he felt it was too embarrassing. The same went for all of us. They all knew what was on my mind, so they didn't bother to ask, but we didn't really know what was bothering Curtis and Mint. I confessed to the person I love, but was turned down. Curtis mumbled almost incoherently. I spat out the drink I was about swallowing while Mint choked on his drink and started coughing, hitting his chest. We both turned to look at Curtis and chorused, "What?" I poured more drink into Curtis's glass. Like who would ever reject the immaculate and innocuous Curtis? I wondered, feeling more and more sober. "After what happened to you, Zyke," he turned to me with a long face. "I decided to tell her before it was too late, but she told me she wasn't ready for a relationship and wasn't sure if I liked her or was just being my kind self to her as I am to others." He explained, then downed all the content of his glass into his mouth at once. I felt that in my bones. Even though I was aware it was actually my sister he was trying to woo, I felt bad for him. I knew he really loved her, and I wasn't really against their relationship as he had always wrongly believed. I patted him on his back, and so did Mint. It was the best we could do as males, listening and comforting each other in our own way. Then Kurt turned to Mint and asked, as though he wanted to use Mint's problem to feel better, "What's up, Mint? Care to share?" "Well, I found my mate." Mint spoke up without much ado, and Curtis and I chorused the shocked "what" once again. "You should be happy, man." Curtis smacked him playfully on the back. "So why the long face, Mint? I asked, leaning forward. It's a long story, guys. Mint frowned, looking really crestfallen. It was a slight surprise. Mint never really got angry or sad. He somehow managed to be happy and had done things that kept his mood up. Well, we are drunk enough to listen. Kurt tried to lighten the mood. I met her for the first time at the ball, he started, staring blankly into space. Kurt and I nodded at him encouragingly to go on. But then we both didn't really know we were mates. I thought it'd be one of my flings until I didn't see her anymore that night. And since then, I couldn't get her out of my head. I had only her name and nothing else. I didn't even know the actual pack she came from. He paused and took a sip of his drink, while Kurt and I listened with rapt attention. However, a few weeks later, she came to find me in the hospital. I don't know how she found out, but we both realized we were mates that day. I took her to our beach house, chilled a little, and we both promised to meet the next day. Same time. She didn't show up for 3 straight damn days. Huh? Why? Curtis looked confused. That's the question I've been asking myself, guys. I waited for her till midnight. I even prepared my signature dish for when she'd show up. But she disappointed. It's never happened to me. She can't possibly be avoiding me, right? I mean, we aren't just lovers. We are bloody mates. Mint knocked his glass on the counter, vibrating its content. So, you didn't get her number or last name? I asked. The pack she comes from? Truthfully, it felt like Mint's situation wasn't a dead end. None, said Mint. She managed not to give me any personal details, and I left in a hurry because it was the same day Emma left. He mumbled the last words, and I instantly felt remorseful and guilty. I couldn't believe my friend was going through this because of me. I'm sorry, Mint, I muttered, feeling the need to leave here right now. You said you guys chilled when she came. How do you mean? Kurt rolled his eyes at Mint. I knew he was trying to lessen the tension around us. About that, she actually asked for sex, and I turned her down, saying I wanted us to get married first, meet each other's families and all that. Mint explained, exasperation written all over his face. You didn't, I blurted out. I'll never believe you refused sex, Mint. Curtis almost laughed. I wish I didn't at this point because it feels like she's avoiding me because I rejected her offer for sex when she said it was her wish. I'm so scared that I might never see her again just because of that. She's my mate and I want her so badly. After the ball, I already feel so attached to her already. It took so much manning up for Mint not to weep right now. And I could relate with him. I wept every night on my bed. My wolf was in such terrible shape at the moment, and I couldn't stop blaming myself because it was really my fault. That was exactly how Mint was feeling right now. I was about to sip more drink from my glass when I felt a strange presence in the room from behind us. Mint and Curtis didn't really sense it since I was an alpha with greater awareness. I turned swiftly on my tall seat to see the Wizard King's advisor, Neil, walking towards us from the exit. My beta and gamma have both noticed and turned too, but calmed down since the presence wasn't really a threat. Your mate is in the vampire realm as we speak, Alpha, Neil announced, going straight to the point. I didn't know I was squeezing the glass in my hand, not until it shattered and pierced holes into my palms. But I couldn't care less. All the alcohol in my system seemed to clear out instantly, but I was trying to fully comprehend what the old sorcerer was saying. I marched to where he stood and grabbed both his shoulders in agitation. What did you just say? She might need you right now, he said too calmly in a way that irked me. Then he disappeared into the thin air and out of my grasp. For a few seconds I couldn't budge. I didn't know how to react. I felt disconcerted, and my whole blood boiled probably over 100 degrees. My stomach turned as if a bomb had been dropped into it. My mate was in the den of those damn leeches, and I was here drinking and laughing. I clenched my fist tightly, unable to imagine what I would do to that blood-sucking weakling when I lay my hands on him. Black growled in my head. My fingers were transforming into claws, and I craved to punch into something so bad. But I should save the rage for Vladimir's stupid face. You have to get a hold of yourself, Zyke. Let's go get your mate right away, I heard Mint say, as they both shook me back into my senses. I turned to my friends, exhaling briefly to let them know I was all right. Get all the hunter and warrior wolves to the boundary, Curtis, I announced. We're going for war. I stormed out of the bar, shapeshifted, and tore into the road. I was heading for the boundary. "Hold on, Emma," I whispered. "Hold on, Emma." And while the knife was still held to my father's neck, I mind-link him. "Dad, you have to shapeshift right now and head towards the exit." "What about you?" "I'm not leaving you here, Emma," my dad replied. I could see sweat breaking out from his brow. He was trying hard to hold his breath because a single movement could get him hurt. How would I tell him I'd be fine and he'd need more protection than me? "You're not leaving me here? Just shapeshift, please. I have a plan, and you can trust me." I tried not to focus on him so the vicious Vladimir wouldn't find out we were communicating. "Don't try anything funny, Emma." He ambled closer to me, wrapping his robe around his body as though his men weren't pointing a knife to someone's neck. Where the heck were the feelings of these creatures, for heaven's sake? How could he look so relaxed when he was about hurting a person? "That knife isn't just an ordinary penknife. It could really harm a werewolf or whatever creature." He let out a wicked grin. "All right, fine," I yelled, stretching both of my hands at him, almost sobbing. "Let him go now, and I'll agree to whatever you want me to do," I said with a trembling voice, hoping he wouldn't see through me. "What are you doing, Emma?" my father screamed at me in my head. "I can't let you stay with this monster. I'll rather die." His voice was filled with trepidation. "I won't stay without you anymore, father, so just trust me and shift to your wolf form, please." I begged him, letting him see the clarity of my heart through our link. "Why should I trust your words, Emma?" Vladimir asked with a softer expression on his face. "Because I keep to my words," I uttered confidently, and then he waved his hands to the men holding my father. They dropped the knife and let go of his hands, but still stood beside him, waiting for more instructions. But before Vladimir could say anything, I gave my father the cue. "Father, now!" I shrieked at him, and he shifted immediately to the horror of both the men standing beside him. Before they could make any move, my father's wolf, Reel, knocked them away and sprinted towards the mansion's exit. Vladimir wanted to use his super speed, but I caught him with a speed faster than his, knocking him off the ground and concurrently shape-shifting, so my wolf was standing on his body. The Vamp King looked like he had passed out, so I left him there and used the super speed to get to my father before Vladimir's men did. They were actually near my father before I got to him, so I pranced on them with all my weight, knocking them into unconsciousness like their king. I knew there were a lot more of them coming for us, so I didn't bother waiting to fight, otherwise one of us between my dad and I could get hurt. So the best obvious decision was to run. My wolf and my father's huge dark wolf started racing side by side towards the boundary of the realm. My father couldn't do the super speed like Vamp's, which I could, and I would never leave him alone here. We were already close to the boundary, and I could feel the heat emanating from the protective dome shielding the realm. It was nothing. My father's wolf and Ashley could scale through. It would have been easier if we used the portal, but I couldn't remember how I made it open the last time. My mother's necklace really had a mind of its own. I nodded at Reel, assuring him through our link that everything would be fine, but as we were about to cross the dome, my father suddenly froze and fell to the ground like a heap of sand. "No!" I growled in terror, running to where he laid with that same knife plunged in his back. My father's wolf laid on his side, grunting in severe pain from the look in his eyes. I turned to see the Vampire King standing few meters away from us, me with his arms folded around his chest and a nasty smirk plastered in his face. I wanted to punch it away so bad. Blood was gushing out from where the knife was in Reel's body, and he wasn't healing as he should. Panic made my blood cold. I was watching my father die without being able to do anything. "Not so fast, my queen." Vladimir drawled with an evil grin. "You have to keep to your words, as you said you will. I really didn't want to hurt your father, though, but look what you made me do." He pouted childishly, in a manner that irked the shit out of me. As he spoke, more men started appearing behind him with their speed. In total, they were about 30. I stood close to my father, guarding him while trying to speak to him through our mind link, but he wasn't responding even though he was still breathing and somehow trying to hold up. I growled into the sky with so much rage burning in me. My heart was shattering as I couldn't get help for my father. I wanted to tear that monster into shreds, but I couldn't leave my father's side, or his men would just finish him off. I closed my eyes and tried to tap into the power from the necklace and then touched Reel with my paws to send him some strength from my body. His breathing came up some more, but I could tell he was still weak. "You have to choose." Vladimir took a step closer. "Being my queen or losing your poor father." "What to do, leech?" "She's my Luna already, so she can't be your queen." An icy and venomous voice came from behind me. I opened my eyes with a start and turned to see Zyke, my mate, putting on a black leader jacket with black jeans and black boots. He stood there menacingly like a statue with his fist tightly clenched, and I could feel the steam coming off of him. He was glaring at Vladimir with all the rage in the world. I looked behind him to see a huge brown wolf, which must be his beta, and then a giant gray wolf, which must be his gamma, with about 40 other enormous wolves, grunting like they have found their prey. The gray wolf, which must be Mint, came and stood in front of me like a shield, and I instantly felt his protective aura. "How nice of you to join us, savage." Vladimir clenched his fist as well. "Funny for you to think you can beat me in my own realm. Thought you'd be smarter. Anyways, she's mine, and there's nothing you and your dumb herds can do about it. You talk too much. Let's just get it over with. Let me teach you a good lesson for daring to covet my mate." Zyke spoke with so much heat in his voice, and before we knew it, the number of men behind Vladimir tripled. This won't do, I thought as I nodded at Mint's wolf to guard my dad instead. I went to stand in front of my mate to face Vladimir head-on. When I told him I kept to my words, it simply meant I would keep to the promise I made to myself of avenging my mother's death, and no one would do it better than me. Not my mate, not 1,000 werewolves. We were outnumbered, but somehow I knew what to do. He came back for me, but this was my fight, and I don't need protecting anymore. He does.